Well, good morning, everyone. It is February 8th, 2025. Welcome to Rethinking Freedom. Yes, we usually air on Mondays, but this was too important to wait. And so we thank you for joining us live today. I am your host, Aya Fubara Eneli. And of course, this is Rethinking Freedom, where it's not just a show, it is a movement. It is about getting each and every one of us to really think about what freedom means to us and what role we are going to play in ensuring our freedom. And we live in times now where whatever freedoms we thought we had are certainly under siege. And so today I'm excited to introduce to you two amazing young women who are doing such a fantastic job raising awareness, doing the work, actively fighting for our freedom. As Ida B. Wells said, freedom is not free. And the question is, what role are you going to play to ensure not just your freedom, but the freedom of everyone, all humanity? So I want to thank everyone for joining us. And I'm going to start off by having my guests introduce themselves this morning. Of course, the topic for our show today is freedom under siege, the human cost of ICE raids. And so today we have with us Magda Powers, and we also have Lexi Sarinana. I'm so excited that you took time out of your schedules and all the work that you're doing to join us today. Welcome to Rethinking Freedom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start by asking you, Magda, if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background.
Yes. So my name is Magda, and I am an immigrant. I was born in Mexico, and my family came to the United States about, I would say roughly about 30 years ago. My mom is US born. And so through her, we were able to gain our citizenship. Me and my dad were able to gain our citizenship. It took about 7 years for that to happen. I grew up in Houston with my family. And when I turned 18, I joined the U.S. Army. I was in the U.S. Army for about 3.5 years. And then after my service, I went to college and to be a paralegal. And I've been a paralegal ever since. I've worked in estate planning, family law, and currently I'm doing criminal defense.
Well, thank you so much for your service, and thank you again for joining us today. Lexi, can you introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yeah, so my name is Lexi. I was born and raised here in Belton. Both of my parents are immigrants. They both came from Mexico. My mom, however, did come over illegally, and it took about 9 years for her to get her residency. So she's not even a U.S. citizen. She has her permanent resident card, as well as my dad and my brother. So the process has been pretty lengthy just to get a residence card. So I was able to see firsthand see the struggles that they faced. I had to learn English on my own. I had to translate for them, being 9 years old, having to translate these legal documents that I don't even know what they mean, what they say. And honestly, I had to grow up quickly in a world that
Okay, you're muted.
I think you muted yourself.
Yeah, the last thing we heard was you had to grow up fast.
Oh, we still can't hear you. Mm-mm.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. We love technology, doesn't it, when it works?
Yeah. So I had to grow up quickly. I always felt like I was in a world that was unfamiliar, being around people that spoke English, and I didn't really understand or know what they were saying. But I feel like these experiences shaped who I am today. I have a strong background in marketing and event coordination, as well as business development. I'm really passionate about building relationships that help our community thrive, whether that's in community outreach or working with local businesses, and organizing and creating opportunities for growth just in the Central Texas area.
Thank you very much. So I met both of you through the rally that you had last week. It was at the Belton courthouse here in Belton, Texas, which is the government seats for Bell County. And it was amazing to see that many people show up for that long of a period of time, and to see the responses that we were getting even from people driving by. Tell me a little bit about how that rally came about and what role you played and what you hoped to achieve with that rally.
So I can go first.
Yeah, go for it.
So I was involved. I was brought in after Lexi, I think. I don't know if Lexi was the one that began the organization, but a mutual friend of ours reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of it just because of my background. And I immediately was like, of course. I have been wanting to get more involved in these sort of things. And I don't know if I just didn't have enough knowledge of it or even thought that there was people in our community that were like-minded. So whenever I heard about this, I have a working relationship with Lexi. I was eager to, start. And we were, kind of brainstorming, like, where can we do it? Where would we have the most impact? Where are we going to be seen and heard the most? And immediately I thought the Belton, the Bell County Courthouse, the historic courthouse. That road is very busy, but I knew that, there's always red tape. So I knew that there was permits we had to get. So we started kind of doing a lot of this probably about a week before the event, I want to say. It was a group effort. It wasn't just me. I work at a law firm during the day, so I had to get the permits and get them notarized and then give them to Lexi so Lexi could take them because, she was closer. And so it was a big collaborative effort between me, Lexi, and a couple of others.
Thank you. Thank you again for your leadership. And how about you, Lexi? How did you get involved with this?
So I had seen what was going on in the United States, and it kind of fueled, not an anger, but like it fueled an anger to see all of the hate that was going around. And I'm very vocal. I like to be involved as much as I can. So I got the idea of having a peaceful protest, but I knew that I couldn't do it alone. I work a full-time job. I have 2 small children that are in sports. So I knew that it was going to be a team effort. And like Magda said, I ended up reaching out to a mutual friend because I know that we kind of not collide, but we're on the same page as far as different things. And I asked her, I was like, hey, will you help me with this? Because I don't know what I'm doing. And she was like, yeah, let's rope in Magda, let's rope in these other people, and let's build this up. And that was all on a Monday. Our protest was on a Saturday. So it was a pretty quick thing. So it wasn't just like I wanted to do it. I feel like our hearts were all in the same place, and we were all meant to work together to be a voice for those unheard.
I think that's really important what you were saying, because so many times as regular citizens or as regular people living in the country, kind of feel like we're powerless. There's not much that we can do. We're not in these positions with titles and so on and so forth. And I think there are a lot of people, like you were saying, to see that many like-minded people who came out, the kind of support that rally engendered. If you're just in your silo, in your home, or just going to work, you might not realize that there are that many people who are saying, we are against this siege. We are against what's happening. And everybody's just kind of sitting, hoping, waiting someone else will take action. So let me just commend both of you and everybody else who was on the team for taking the action, for saying, we don't have to wait 10 months to plan out anything. This is going on now. It's hurting people. We can take action right now. And you pulled it up. And I know, Lexi, as you were talking, you said it was important for this to be a peaceful rally. Why was that important to you?
So in my line of work, I kind of can't be involved with anything that's not peaceful. So I'm the type that I'm against violence. I think, having a voice and doing it the right way is important. But I also saw, how the other peaceful protests were happening, and there was always a counter protest, and it would kind of start to get ugly. And so
unfortunately, I've been a part of many of those protests with the counter protesters. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. So I definitely did not want that. I didn't want us to be seen as, the people that get hot-headed or anything like that. I really tried to reiterate as much, as well as the team tried to reiterate, like, hey, if anybody comes up to you or if anybody says anything negative or ugly, just say, we love you, and call it a day. Just try not to respond. So that was definitely a big part of not just us reiterating to keep it peaceful, but also the part on all of the protesters that were there.
So there was training. So anybody listening, there was some thought process. They went through, okay, what are the rules in terms of having a public gathering? It was very strategic. And I think, again, as we are thinking about how do we resist, how do we fight back, it's important to understand some of the pieces that go into this. So Magda, what exactly were you all protesting? Because there are some people who are watching now, who will watch later, who are like, well, what were they protesting? I mean, it's America. It's the home of the brave and the land of the free. Yeah. And you should be grateful that you get to be here in the United States of America, the greatest country in the world. So what exactly were you guys protesting? Why aren't you just excited to live in America? What is wrong?
So just for a quick second, I want to add to what Lexi said before. I think one of the biggest reasons why we needed to have a peaceful protest is because sometimes when it does turn, the message is lost. And then they just focus on the negative, if there was violence or whatever, the message of the protest will get lost. It just, that's all people will focus on. And that was very important to us as organizers to make sure that the message didn't get lost. And the message, in my opinion, is I just want to make sure that everybody understands, everybody that was at the protest or anybody who is willing to listen to us, that every single person in America, in the United States, has rights. Even the accused have rights. I work in criminal defense, and even the accused have rights. They have a right to fair trial. They have the right to remain silent. They have, the right against unlawful, search and seizure. And all of those same rights also apply to undocumented immigrants. They have the right to due process, and they should not be racially profiled, which is also, in violation of their constitutional rights. They should not be racial profiled, and they should not be detained or even deported without due process.
Without due process. And for those who don't understand what due process is, can you break that down a little bit? What is due process?
So my understanding of it is that there are laws in place to protect everyone, including the accused. So if somebody gets accused of a crime or get accused of being undocumented immigrants, they have the right to defend themselves, to say maybe they're not undocumented, because we've been hearing stories of people who are legally here who are being detained and questioned, and they are permanent residents or even American citizens. So
who are being racially profiled.
Exactly.
Because we understand that this is really an attack against Black and brown people.
Exactly.
Because the people that they're going after are largely not white looking. Yes.
Exactly. And, you know, I can't imagine in the state of our, you know, country right now that, you know, they're not racially profiling. They are. They're profiling people who speak Spanish. My mom is an American citizen and she has a thick accent and she struggles with English sometimes. Are they going to question her? And she's an American citizen. She was born here. So those were the big things that were very important to me. And then specifically me, because I am also an immigrant, I do not want to be profiled and questioned about where are your papers, just as any other American wouldn't like it. And so that was the main reason, is I just wanted to educate people, because I hear a lot of rhetoric online about people saying, you know, they're illegals, they, you know, are criminals, deport them all. And that's just not the case.
I'm really glad that you're making that distinction. First and foremost, let me say, you know, with our audience, let me share that this idea of who is legal and illegal, we have to understand that laws are made by human beings. And that there was a time in this country where the doors were open. The original owners of this land, including Texas, where we are, were actually non-whites. We're talking about Native Americans. We're also talking about Mexicans. We're talking about people of Hispanic descent, if you will. And so you redraw lines and then you make up these laws, and you can see that even from the new executive order that Trump has signed, which is like, oh, let's bring in the South African white refugees. Those people we want because they're white, but there are other people that we want to eliminate from this country. And so as we talk about this conversation about ICE raids, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the executive order that kind of jump-started all of these raids this time around. We need to understand that this is deeply rooted in white supremacy. This is deeply rooted in creating a country that does not have the diversity that we currently see now, that relegates certain people to second-class citizenship or no citizenship at all, which is crazy. Again, given the fact that much of what is now considered America, well, let me say this, all of what is considered America never belonged to white people in the first place. Like, you were the original illegal immigrants, if you will, except you discarded everybody else's laws and used force and violence to take over places, and then now you want to exclude people. So I know you guys want to add to that. Let me just read what brought about all of this at this time in 2025. So in January 2025, some people call him president. I call him the felon-in-chief. Felon-in-chief Donald Trump. Hey, I didn't say it. A jury of his peers convicted him of 34 felonies, which, again, you're talking about getting rid of criminals, and you're a criminal yourself 34 times over. That's just bizarre. Anyway, he signed an executive order 14159, so 14159, titled Protecting the American People Against Invasion. So again, you need to ask yourself, who are the American people and who are the invaders? You also have to ask yourself, who gets labeled as illegal and who is considered legal, and how do those laws change? Because as some Venezuelans found out who had voted for Trump, and now this past week I just saw a press conference where they're saying he lied to us. He told us he was not going to revoke our temporary protected status, and now he's done that. And it's like, he's a liar. He's done that consistently.
And I think personally, education is key, because we see that a majority of the Latino votes were for Trump. personally, I feel like it's because there
not a
wasn't enough.
majority, but a huge, there was a significant amount,
Right.
especially more for Latino men than Latino
Men,
women.
yeah.
But yes, go ahead.
I feel like education is definitely key. Had there been more education, that may have not happened. Because now, like you said, some people are coming out of the woodwork saying, I didn't vote for this, but you did.
Yeah.
And so.
And yeah, and back to what you were saying about who is, you know, the original, you know, inhabitant of this land, that, you know, it's so laughable to me that he's trying to, you know, thankfully our judicial system has stopped it, but he's trying to end birthright citizenship, which is the whole reason why all of the American citizens even have citizenship in the first place is because of birthright citizenship.
Hello, he was married to 2 women who were not quote unquote American. So does that apply to his children too?
And my mother was born in Texas, and she gained citizenship through birthright citizenship because she was born in the United States. I just, you know, I don't know if you ladies heard the audio of the judge in what he ruled in stopping him, you know, signing the injunction against the order. But it gave me goosebumps when I heard him speaking, because what he said was 100% correct, that he cannot change the Constitution with an executive order. If he wants to change the Constitution, there needs to be an amendment. And there is a procedure of how to amend the Constitution. And just simply declaring it and saying, we're going to end birthright citizenship is not the way to do it. And I still have hope for this country, because there is our system of checks and balances where the judicial system has said, actually, you cannot do that, and we're stopping it right here. You know, like I said, I have hope because there are others who are seeing what he's doing, and it's just, you know, his press secretary said that birthright citizenship is unconstitutional, even though it is the Constitution.
So they pretty much say whatever they want to, and he did tell us, if the voters were listening, both those who voted and those who chose not to vote, which in and of itself was a vote.
Yeah.
So your silence is not going to save you, is what I'm telling people. Being quiet is not going to protect you. He did say, I want to be dictator from day one. And that's basically how he's trying to rule. And yes, we're hoping that the checks and balances in the system hold up, but we see that Congress has, for the most part, been very compromised with MAGA. And even the Supreme Court has made some decisions lately that are like, are you trying to tear apart your own country? So with the executive order, basically what this brought about was the expanded use of expedited removal, allowing for the deportation of individuals without a court hearing, and denying federal funding to sanctuary jurisdictions. So cities that are saying where sanctuary cities have been threatened. It also imposed criminal and civil penalties for immigrants who fail to register as undocumented, significantly increasing the hiring of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, and the Customs and Border Protection agents. I know quite a few soldiers in this area that we live in who have now been sent to the borders, if you will. It has also, this executive order also restricts access to public benefits for undocumented immigrants. Here in Texas, they're even asking medical personnel to keep track of any undocumented immigrants, which will prevent people from getting the health care that they need, maybe life-saving procedures. Schools are being threatened as well. It expanded 287 agreements enabling local law enforcement to perform federal immigration duties. Again, just violating laws. It's, hey, I'm dictator and this is what I want. And it then increased federal criminal prosecutions for immigration-related offenses. As a result of this executive order, ICE has intensified its operations, arresting over 11,000 individuals in just the first 18 days of the administration. This surge in enforcement has led to the takeover of 4 federal prisons to accommodate the increased number of detainees. They're using military-grade airplanes to fly people out. People who maybe have never lived in those countries are just rounded up. Children are scared. There are whole towns where people are not going to work. Children are not going to school, even when they're documented. And as a person of African descent, this also brings to my memory how it was during slavery times when Black people always had to have their papers on them. Because at any point in time, any white person, any militia, and we have plenty of them in Texas, could just stop you because you were a second-class citizen and demand your papers. And if you didn't have them, there was hell to pay, sometimes with your life. Additionally, these actions have prompted legal challenges, like you said, from a coalition of U.S. cities and counties. The lawsuit argues that the administration's threat to cut funding and prosecute non-compliant officials, local officials, is unauthorized and it's authoritarian. But so we can talk about it at this larger level in terms of what this executive order is doing. We can talk about the pressure being put on presidents from other countries to take in people, and even the conversation that Marco Rubio is having about sending American citizens to jails outside of America, which is, again, unconstitutional. But what have you all seen as the human toll this is taking? What are you hearing, seeing in our community as to how people are responding to and feeling the impact of this executive order?
I feel like people are scared. Kind of like you said, people are scared to go to work. People are scared to drop their kids off at school because they don't know, if they're going to be picked up or if their kid's going to be picked up or, whatever happens. They're scared to go to the grocery store to provide or to purchase groceries for their family. I just feel like people are now scared.
And in the land of the free.
Go ahead. So I haven't personally experienced anything, even with my family, other than I had a conversation with my mom, I think a few days ago, where I asked her and my dad, are you guys carrying your green card? I'm like, Mom, you might want to carry your passport with you. And my brother too, my brother was born here, and my brother, I would hate for my brother and my dad, who work in construction, for them to be stopped and questioned, just because of the way that they look. But I also think there's also something to be said about it doesn't need to personally affect you to be able to care. I can see around me and I see how at large it's affecting the Hispanic and Latino community. And I don't need to personally be affected to be able to care. And I see a lot of, or lack thereof, of empathy towards some people who have been here for years. I mean, I'm talking even DACA recipients who have been here since they were babies, have pledged of allegiance to the American flag throughout their entire school, career. And then only to become adults and realize that now they are undocumented when they didn't even know. Some of them don't even know their language, and they have zero options. They don't know what to do, because some of them might not even have family or even a place to go in their country of origin. And just the lack of empathy and just caring towards other human beings is astounding to me. I sometimes have to log off the internet because of just the things that I read of people, American people, Christian people, saying horrible things about
so-called Christian
beings. Yeah, human beings. I mean, I just can't imagine a world where somebody, and I understand that a lot of them feel and are being told that they're all criminals. The people that they're rounding up are criminals. And that is just simply not the case. They are indiscriminately gathering everybody, women, children, people who have traffic violations, like not driving with a license or I'm sorry, driving without a license, and that sort of thing. And it's astounding to me that people just don't seem to like in the United States, the punishment has to fit the crime. And I don't think uprooting a person and destroying their life, separating from their family, sending them to a country that they don't even know or are familiar with is punishment that's equivalent to something like a traffic violation. I work in criminal defense, and I do feel that if there is a person who gets convicted of a crime, a violent crime, or a crime of moral turpitude, that there should be a process for them to be removed. But that's not what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
There should be a process, and that's the point.
Exactly. And the White House right now is saying that it is their opinion that, because they've been pressed, they've asked what percentage of these are violent criminals and what percentage of them are just regular people, and the White House press secretary has said they're all criminals, and that's just not true.
And I think the point you're making about our common humanity and not being able to put yourself in the shoes of other people, again, unless your family is Native American and or Mexican, mm-hmm. because a large part of Mexico was incorporated into America, mm-hmm. including Texas, which mm-hmm. is not an English word. Mm-hmm. You are an immigrant yourself. Mm-hmm. And so the inability to have any humanity. When you talked about Christians, I say so-called Christians, because I actually saw an interview where someone was saying, well, Jesus was an immigrant, and so will Jesus be allowed to come? And they're like, no, not only if he has his papers. And I'm like, my goodness, that is insane, but it is what we're living. Mm-hmm. And the bigger picture is a group of oligarchs, really wealthy people, who are telling largely poor and middle-class folk, mm-hmm. your problem, the reason why you're not progressing is because somebody else here is making maybe minimum wage or working their butts off in the hot sun, your construction, the food that we eat, all mm-hmm. of that, and not even getting any benefits, paying mm-hmm. into a system that they cannot pull out from, and telling you that those people are your problem. Mm-hmm. when they are making money hand over fist. So whether it's Elon Musk or any of these other multi-billionaires, Jeff Bezos and all of that, and Donald Trump, for them to tell people your problem are the quote unquote immigrants, while they are stealing the country blind, mm-hmm. and actually weakening this country. Because we know that people from all parts of the world who are now here in the United States have contributed to what is now known as the United States. As a matter of fact, talking about education, the economy of the United States will not be what it is without so-called immigrants, mm-hmm. without so-called those Black and brown people that you want to get rid of. And so the inhumanity of it all, and like you said, it's I don't know if it's just a lack of education, because when I met with a lady who, and I got a chance briefly to speak at the rally last week, and I started off with really what was a guttural cry. And the reason I started with that was because I got a call and I said hello. And before she could start speaking, that's what I heard. And this is someone who cannot reach a family member. They don't know where the family member is, poof, and they're assuming that they've been taken by ICE. And it was just this cry from just like the depths of her womb. If you've mm-hmm. ever had a child and you've had that, just it was like, yeah. And I didn't even know what she was calling about. I heard that cry and tears immediately filled my eyes. My heart stopped. And I was like, what is it? So if you can imagine putting yourself in those shoes, if you can imagine mm-hmm. parents now coming to finding people that can agree to take their children. They're signing over guardianship in the event that something happens. This is the terrorism that is occurring in our country right now. And what I want everybody to understand is it's not going to stop with ICE. It's not going to stop with the Black and brown people that you think are the problem. Once you don't take a stand here and all the checks and balances are collapsed and weakened, your freedom is going to be next. That is what I want people to know. What else would you like our listeners to know as we talk about the human cost of these ICE raids?
So one of the things that, when we were organizing this event, that was very important to me was making, like you said, educate, obviously, but not just about the rights of, every person, citizen or no. I think it's also important to inform any opposition or, anti-protest to our cause is these, anti-immigration talking points. And I made every day of the week leading up to the protest, I tried to post something on the group to get people to engage. And one of those was I posted, it was how to combat, anti-immigration talking points with facts and sources, because there's a lot of times where people are, hearing things on the news, either they're biased or what have you. And for example, White House press secretary saying they're all criminals. I'm not going to give you specifics. They're all criminals. And that's just simply not the case. But if you're hearing that from our government, a lot of people who are in support of that government will believe that when that's actually not the case. And so I, in that post that I made, and I'd like to share it with you if you want to, so we can put it in the description of the video. But it talks about how immigrants, are moochers, and they're taking over services, and how they don't contribute to the economy, and how they are taking up, resources from Americans. And, I cited sources where it's information that is, either research done by a third party where it disproves that, where it shows that immigrants actually help the economy. They actually put into a system that they never receive anything back from, that they, the amount of funds that comes from the budget for healthcare is insignificant. And, as compared to what Americans receive. And so that is also very important to get out, so that people can maybe have a different perspective, because I don't think that we're going to change minds. I feel like there are some people that are just never going to change their mind just because they're full of hate and they just don't like people of color. But then there's also some people who may say, I don't qualify for WIC and food stamps, and here's people who are undocumented and they get, how is that fair that they're not legal and they can qualify? And, I just...
and those same people are not looking at a system that has allowed the multi-billionaires to quadruple their income, but keeps minimum wage at such a low level for what? Over 15 years, minimum wage hasn't been raised. You're not looking at systems that are keeping you down. Instead, you think, again, your issue is...
Exactly. Just like you said, I mean, the government, the people at the top, they want you to believe that the enemy is, like you said in your speech, that the enemy is your neighbor. And that is not who is... I mean, we have almost a $900 billion defense budget that has never passed an audit, and yet somehow a child getting Medicaid or a child of an immigrant getting food stamps is the problem. Like, I just cannot... I would 1,000 times prefer a child to have food security, health insurance, housing, than to have Elon Musk get a $15 billion contract for SpaceX? I mean, it's just, to me, there's just a disconnect, you know?
Yeah, like make it make sense.
Yeah, like I just don't understand why anyone would say, why do children get free lunches when Elon Musk is getting a $15 billion contract funded by the US taxpaying dollars? It's just, I just cannot fathom that. And I'm really not very religious. I grew up Catholic, but I'm just not practicing. And even I know that is just goes against, you know, the teachings of Jesus and the teachings of most religions.
Any religion.
Yeah, of most religions. So I cannot fathom anything like that. It's very it's very disillusioning. I don't know if that's a word. It's very, I'm very disillusioned by it. Yeah. So
let me share some facts with our listeners. And yes, we're going to come back. Please come back to the chat, because we're going to come back in the description and add some additional resources for you, including information on how you can contact your elected officials. And Lexi and Magda, if you guys can also share a little bit more with us on that. But let me just talk about the facts in terms of quote unquote immigrants in this country. And I know there's some of you who are listening who are like, yeah, of course they're having this show. They're all immigrants. You know, can't you hear their accents or whatever? Yes. My family's originally from Nigeria. I was born in the United States of America. And yes, that is the diversity of the United States of America. Deal with it. Okay. So let's just talk about a little bit of the facts in terms of economic contributions, job creation, and entrepreneurship. Immigrants start businesses at higher rates than native-born Americans, creating millions of jobs. Companies like Google, even Tesla, even the daggone Elon Musk is a immigrant. Isn't that mind-boggling? Yeah. Of course, he came from apartheid South Africa, where Black people were treated as second-class citizens. And so I guess that's what he wants to recreate here in the United States. And Apple was founded by immigrants or their children. Filling labor gaps, immigrants contribute to industries facing worker shortages, including healthcare, agriculture, and technology. Boosting the GDP. Studies show that immigrants contribute billions to the U.S. economy annually through their work, spending, and taxes, even though many of them, like you talked about DACA, these are people who are paying in, but might not be ever able to receive it, and there's no pathway for them to become citizens at this point. STEM and skilled workers. Many immigrants are highly educated, particularly in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, driving innovation and keeping the U.S. competitive globally. I was just in Illinois, and I kept seeing billboards for doctors. And all the billboards that I saw, those doctors had names that some ignorant Americans will consider un-American names. They had Hispanic names, they had Asian names, they had African names. I'm like, who is going to take care of your aging population? Essential workers. Immigrants make up a significant portion of healthcare workers, farm laborers, and service industry employees. Supporting critical sectors. Look around you. Some of these jobs that they're taking out jobs, you all don't want them. Because it's hard work, back-breaking work, hardly any benefits, but you want to say everybody's a criminal. Immigrants bring diverse traditions, languages, and cuisines. It's crazy. You're eating a taco.
I saw someone at the protest. Somebody had a sign that said, I hate tacos, said no white person ever. It was laughing so hard when I saw that sign.
Like, you love our culture, but you don't love our people.
Exactly. Yeah. You want the culture, but you don't love our people. Absolutely. It's like, what is American food? You can't think of anything. It's what immigrants, quote unquote, immigrants have brought in. Military service, just like you, Magda. Thousands of immigrants, hundreds of thousands of immigrants serve in the U.S. military, defending the nation and earning citizenship through their service. Paying taxes. Immigrants, including undocumented ones, contribute billions in local, state, and federal taxes. supporting programs like Social Security and Medicare that they cannot access most of the time. Let's talk about the population. Just like in Europe, where they're seeing such a drop in population, which is another reason why they have reversed Roe v. Wade and are trying to get white women to have more babies, even if it means enslaving white women and all women. This country doesn't grow without the birth rates of a lot of Black and brown people. Let's go on further, because we're talking about crime and how these, immigrants are causing all this crime. A study analyzing 150 years of U.S. Census data found that immigrants have consistently had lower incarceration rates than U.S.-born individuals. In recent years, immigrants are 60% less likely to be incarcerated compared to native-born Americans, native-born citizens, including the felon-in-chief who is sitting in the White House right now. In Texas, a 2020 study revealed that immigrants of all legal statuses were arrested at less than half the rate of the U.S.-born citizens for violent and drug crimes, and at 1/4 the rate for property crimes. So what are you talking about? Like, people need to understand. Research indicates that undocumented immigrants have substantially lower crime rates than native-born citizens across all the felony offenses. Again, in Texas, between 2012 and 2018, it was found that undocumented immigrants were significantly less likely to be arrested for violent property and drug crimes. And I could go on and on and on. The information is out there. The question is, what do you want to believe? So, ladies, what would you like to add to all of that?
What I'd like to add is, working in criminal defense for now going on 10 plus years, there are people who are accused and convicted of crimes of all races, all sexes. It's not just people of color committing crimes. I'm sure that you're familiar with how people of color, especially male people of color, get convicted at a higher rate than, white people, even though the crime reporting is not equivalent to the conviction rate, right? So we already know that's already an issue. But I think also it is, and again, I'm sure that there are many people who have committed crimes that are immigrants. I believe personally that it is in our culture to come to the United States and better our lives. My dad, told me many times, he says, I'm here in this country to give you a better life. Don't waste the opportunity. Do not, waste your life on something that's not going to better yourself and our family. And that's how I was raised.
I got the same speech from my parents.
Because my dad would tell me, if you're not going to take advantage of the things that are here to make your life better, then I would rather be at home with my family, And I feel like it's in our culture to want to better ourselves. And, like I said, there's people who commit crimes of all ethnicities. It's not just certain specific groups of people. But I think, like I said, it's in our culture to want to better ourselves, to work hard for what we have. My dad, immigrant for many years, one of the hardest working men I've ever met in my entire life. And, similar with a lot of the people in my family. And we're just here to try to make a better life. And, what we're getting in return, as far as like how society views us, it's not fair. And I think it's injustice.
Yeah. How about you, Lexi?
So I kind of want to go back to talking about protesting. So beyond protesting, voting is one of the most powerful tools we have. Supporting pro-immigrant policies and candidates can honestly lead to a real change. Educating others, volunteering with legal aid groups, and even something as simple as helping your neighbor, helping someone fill out paperwork for their residency or citizenship, because change happens through consistent action, not just when a crisis hits.
Yes. That is powerful. That is powerful. And that's something that everyone can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another thing that I'd like to add also is I was thinking about this on my way, to this meeting. I was driving and I was thinking about it, about how there's a lot of people who will say things like, well, why don't they do it the right way? You know, why aren't they doing it, legally, so to say? And a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to become a legal resident or even a citizen. I mean, it took my family and Lexi's family years to be able to complete that. And, luckily for at least, just speaking personally for my family, we had that in and of itself, being able to legally do it is a privilege in and of itself, because there are people who are coming to this country who do not have, education, do not have financial stability. And there are bigger socioeconomic elements that prevent them from being able to do it the legal way. One of the biggest things that I really wanted to focus on during the protest is making sure that people call their representatives to, and their senators and their elected officials, to have a legal path to citizenship, to make it less difficult and more accessible to people, so that the people who are here can become legal citizens or residents, so that they don't have to live in fear, because that is,
because most people actually would like to go through it legally.
Exactly.
It's just not a process.
But the current system is outdated. It's overly complex, and it's often inhumane. I mean,
it's definitely inhumane. When you talk about DACA, one of you brought up DACA, and for those who don't know, that stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. These are people who came as children, didn't have any choice in what happened. They're here. They've gone to school here. Like you said, they're pledging allegiance to the flag. They are getting degrees or working or whatever. They're paying into the system, and there is no legal clear path for them to ever become citizens. And this may be the only country that they've ever known.
Yeah. And too often, I think also, our politicians will play politics with these issues that do affect people every single day. I have a lot of relatives that are on DACA that arrived around the same time that I did, but they had no legal way to attain citizenship, like I did with my mother. And they were brought here when they were infants. I mean, I have cousins who have lived here their entire lives. They have children here now. I can't imagine a world where she would get deported, and her children are American citizens, her husband is American citizen, and there's just no legal way for her to become, a citizen. And that to me is the real problem, is we need to encourage our politicians to pass laws in order to make it simplified, because there is a way to be able to do it. I just feel that the government refuses to implement those because they oftentimes like to campaign on issues like this. And there's the pro-choice movement. There's so many of these topics that I feel our politicians could have already done something about it, but they don't do anything about it because they can campaign on these issues. And I think that's been a mistake by using these people as like political pawns in these elections. Again, it's not fair. They need to be able to pass legislation to make the process easier for people to have access, because just like Lexi said, she was translating documents when she was 9, documents that, she may not know what her parents are signing. I mean, I helped my dad renew his residency not that long ago. And even I was just kind of like, oh man, asking my dad, questions, and he wasn't sure what the answers were, it's very, and again, that in of itself is a privilege to be able to do that. And I don't think a lot of people know or realize that.
So let's take the last few minutes that we have here to just tell people what they can do. And you already started with that, Lexi, in terms of saying, hey, reach out to your elected officials. So have you, Magda. So is there any information or places that you would like to point people to in terms of how do they do that? Can I text? Can I call? Do I have to go drive up there? Can I email? Like, what are the options, and what else can people do? Those who are concerned, those who want to make a difference. Are there any groups that they can tap into? Some things we might not want to share on air because there are also bad actors out there trying to create more issues. But what can you share with our audience?
So the QR code that I sent, we can include just the link to those resources. It's a graphic I made that has all of there's a website where you can find your elected representatives. The QR code was specifically curated for our area. It has everybody that represents the Temple and Belton area. But I also included a script on what to say. Obviously you can deviate from what you want to say, but a lot of people are like, okay, well, I call, what do I say to them? Just make sure your voice is heard that way. And we also have the cards, where we're informing citizens and non-citizens alike of their rights. They have the rights to remain silent, to refuse searches, and making sure that it's in Spanish and in English. We provided a link to the website where I got it from, where they have all kinds of other different languages, not just Spanish. Spanish, in particular, the reason why I chose it is because I think that's the majority in our community. But I know that there are other, type of immigrants that speak different languages, and those are also available on that website.
So we can include all of those. So listeners, whenever you're listening, we're going to, after the slide, we're going to make sure that we add all of that into the chat and the description so that you can access that information as well. Anything else that you would like to add, Lexi?
Honestly, Magda did a really great job at the QR code and providing those resources. Being around like-minded people, or even educating the opposed side, is something really important, because you have a voice. We need to be the voice for those that feel like they don't have a voice. So really just education is key, and making yourself aware of those different organizations that can help. So I know I've seen LULAC, they've been posting different informational posts. So being a part of that, seeing that, if you know somebody, let them know about their Know Your Rights cards, their little red cards. And it comes in different languages as well. Let me see if I can find. Magda, do you know if we have the official site for those cards?
I put the website on our Facebook post, but I can send all that too.
Okay, that's great. And I will.
So another resource is also the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. So that website has a lot of different resources. It has what they do, the books and training, community resources, and that's where the red cards can be found. And it doesn't only have Spanish, it also has different other languages too.
And you guys may have noticed that one of the things this administration wants to do is to make sure that nothing is printed in any other language except English, which is crazy. I was in Morocco last year, and this little 9-year-old girl spoke French, English, Arabic, Amharic. It was, it's like she spoke 5 languages. And somehow here in America, we're so proud that we're so ignorant and can barely speak one English language. That makes us so amazing. You're American, I can speak English. Like you literally cannot communicate with the vast majority of the world unless they have learned English. And so I was in Morocco, and as brilliant as I am, I was almost about to miss my flight because the announcements were being made in Arabic and in French, and I didn't understand it either because I'm an American. I mean, I speak other African languages, but that's how ignorant we are here. But you mentioned LULAC. LULAC is the League of United Latin American Citizens. You can go to just, if you type in lulac.org, you can go there, and there are a lot of resources that are available as well. And there are other communities who are also creating resources. But I think to the point everyone has made, embracing our common humanity, speaking up. You hear someone saying something that is derogatory or that is an outright lie, just because they're not saying it about you, speak up, protect your neighbors, really be that person of faith, whatever your faith is, which means that we're compassionate and we're loving to each other. And we don't just go out of our way to be violent and hurtful and cruel to people for no good reason. And understand that this country will be poorer and weaker and less safe if this felon in chief is actually able to pull off what he's trying to do. Because immigrants, legal and undocumented and all of the above, actually contribute quite a bit, actually contribute a significant amount to making this country what it is. The other point that one of you raised that I just wanted to address, Magda, I think it was you when you were talking about messages you got from your father. Also understanding that, Lexi, when you talked about the importance of voting and being educated when you vote, there are policies that this country carries out that creates economic insecurities in other countries. There are policies that they carry out that create political insecurities in other countries. And one of the reasons that you see people migrating to the United States of America is because they are fleeing a lot of the harm that America, through its policies, has imposed on other nations, while also promoting itself through Hollywood and other means as the land of milk and honey. And so if we elected officials, so for instance, you take US AID right now, which Trump is trying to destroy that entire infrastructure. He's pulled out of the World Health Organization. When you decide that you want to make policies that negatively impact other countries, that destabilize their political systems and their economic systems, that's what creates the chaos that causes people to then leave where they could be at home and feel like they belonged, to take, in some cases, these very treacherous journeys to find a better place for their children. So if we stopped some of the stuff we were doing as a nation, most immigrants that I know, not all, but most immigrants that I know, if they could have access to a good, safe life in their homelands, they would stay there. Please, any last comments that you both want to share? We'll start with you, Lexi.
I think just remembering that we are all human. We shouldn't be seeing color. We shouldn't be seeing gender. We're just all human. We need to work together to making this country better, instead of tearing it down and dehumanizing people that are just coming over here to have a better life.
Thank you, Lexi. How about you, Magda?
Yeah, and just I just bringing it back to my service to this country. I remember when I first joined the Army, I was very grateful to have the ability to join the Army and, sort of pay back, the life that I have here in the United States as an immigrant. And it's just sad that you know, I felt this need to want to give back to a country that now is demonizing me and my people. You know, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there have been veterans who have been deported. You know, there's, you know, a lot, they're out there, and it's really, really sad that, you know, this is the state of our country. And I would hope that with this collective effort, that a lot of people who I think would not have not spoken out before, would not have a voice before, will be moved to speaking out and trying to make a change.
Yeah. So as the more we talk, the more you're just like bringing up things that I'm like, people should know this. People should know this. So I don't know how many people have read Project 2025. It's a diabolical document, but it is basically the playbook that they're implementing. Everything that they're doing, they actually told us ahead of time they were going to do. And for those of you in the military, that this is what you just said, Magda, sparked this. You need to understand a lot of times our servicemen and women end up marrying people from other countries because they're sent all over the world. In this diabolical document called Project 2025, I'm looking over my shoulder because I actually have the entire thing printed out in this binder without dropping all these other books. Yeah, this is it. Every American should read this. Everyone living in the United States of America should read this because it tells you what the playbook is, and that is what they're implementing. But one of the things that they say in here is that in terms of housing, you know, when they provide housing for soldiers or military people, that if you have a mixed rate, a mixed citizen status family, they will deny you access to housing. So if you're an American citizen and you are, you know, serving the country, but your wife or your husband is not an American citizen, even though they are here legally because maybe you filed the paperwork and so on and so forth, you will be denied federal housing because you're not both American citizens. Yeah. So in other words, your spouse and your children, to heck with them. Yeah. And so people really need to understand what these guys are doing and understand this is really not about Republican or Democrat. That is not what this is about. It's about humanity.
Yeah. 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 And it's really, to me, it's very incredible, and not in a good way, that they are wanting to put these types of restrictions or you know, these regulations in regards to housing or, you know, what have you, for a volunteer service, right? I mean, who's going to want to join the military if this is what you're getting in return? You know, I'm at a loss for words when stuff like that is proposed, because this is a volunteer. I mean, we're going to get to the point where they're going to have to start drafting people because people are not going to want to join and serve their country for a country that's mistreating them.
And while you're voting for these people, they may just draft your child. So again, I want to thank you, Magda. I want to thank you, Lexi, for showing us what courage looks like, for taking a stand, for galvanizing a community. I would say, to my count, there were at least 200, probably more people there that showed up. But then just looking at the signs, the children, there were people of all backgrounds there. Every race, I saw people there, gender, sexuality. And although we got flipped off by some people,
I just smiled at them.
But we had more people who were supportive, in my opinion, than people who were, you know, who felt like they had to make ugly gestures and all of that, which just shows who they are. So thank you for showing us that we all have power, that we do need to come together, that we need to keep speaking up. And so for anyone watching this, please like, please subscribe, please share, please come back, because between the three of us, we're going to come back into the chat and all of that and make sure that we put in as many resources. And even as the weeks go by, we can always come back in here and add in some more resources. But take care of one another, because that's what freedom should really be about. I want to thank you both again for coming, for joining us, and let this not be the last time. Just know that you are always welcome to come back to this platform and help educate us all. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right.